Let's go to this now. Followers of the traditional African religion believe they are watched over by their ancestors, who, of course, guide them in times of crises or when facing an important decision in their lives. But fraudsters see an opportunity in this. They defraud unsuspecting followers who are desperate for answers from the spiritual world, and harsh economic conditions have only made matters worse. Let's speak to Nazia Karrim, Head of Product Development at the South African Fraud Prevention Service now. Nazia, thank you for joining me this evening. This is actually a very important issue, to discuss. I think a lot of people fall victim to something like this, and it's not really always talked about. I think, first and foremost, maybe just paint the picture for us here. How do things like this happen when it comes to, let's call it the ancestor scam, if we will, and then maybe also just, detail the main characteristics of these syndicates. What is the modus operandi here?
Thank you for having us today. Unfortunately, scammers are looking to abuse not only our emotions today, but also our religious beliefs. And as we are well aware, in South Africa, we have many people who follow the African traditional beliefs, that their ancestors are able to help them in their daily life and guide them in the way their future will progress. Unfortunately, the scammers believe that this is an opportunity for them to manipulate our feelings and our emotions using our religious beliefs. The scammers here actually impersonate traditional healers and sangomas, claiming to have actually received some form of divine message from the victim's ancestors. And they claim to have been informed that the victim is in need of this urgent cleansing and blessings from their ancestors in order for their lives to be able to move on or go forward and improve their circumstances. Unfortunately, the unsuspecting victims are then taken for everything that they have.
And let's talk about an example of that. How do people fall prey to this? Do they approach people via social media? Do they call them? Where do they get their details? Who's the most vulnerable here when it comes to these scams? And maybe just use an example of how someone then ends up at a so-called healer. And are they fake healers or are they actual real healers, traditional healers, that's part of these syndicates?
Well, there's 2 or 3 different MOs, but I think one of the most frightening ones is the fact that they actually profile some of the victims. And in this way, they are able to gather information about you or the particular target based on information you might have published online, made public in some form, way, or manner, or they may have just actually followed information or tip-offs from other people around in the area who've been searching for potential victims. Once this information is actually collected, they come forward and they actually physically approach the consumer or the potential victim, and they say, listen, we've received this message. You need to come with us so that we can help you hear and receive the message. And they go as far as actually offering the consumer cash that was received as a gift from the ancestors. And when they actually have this meeting, the victims are actually drugged using a cleansing ritual that's now got hallucinogens inside of the ritual's drink. And this creates an illusion in the victim's mind that they are hearing and seeing their ancestors, and that truly the money that was provided in this event was provided to them by their ancestors. And so when they walk out, they really do believe they've had a spiritual experience, something that is going to make their life better. So they willingly follow the next step, which the scammer then says, in order for your life to move forward, you need to have the rest of your finances and the rest of your money blessed by your ancestors. And the only way you can do that is if you bring it in cash to me. And people go out and they withdraw their savings and even their pension funds.
And at the end of the day, that is thousands, tens of thousands of rand that actually that people spend on this, and that they lose at the end of the day, life savings that people lose. It seems like it is, well, it doesn't seem, it is a huge crime. But how does one then make sure that something like this doesn't happen? But I think more importantly, do these criminals ever get caught? And if so, what do they get charged with? What's the legal process here? Can they actually be convicted of these crimes?
I think the first most important point here is that we actually need the victims to come forward and report the incidents to the police and ourselves. Actually, only 20% of all incidents that take place are reported. And this information is vital in order for us to be able to apprehend the perpetrators or identify the syndicates that are actually carrying out these scams. We need that vital information to move forward. Depending on the syndicate and how deep or intricate the actual scam was, it can be a simple incident of fraud, and it might even land up in violent crime if the particular victim, perhaps say, passed away from many of the drugs that they might have ingested. So depending on the circumstance, the charge will be different for each individual case.
I also heard about the mining scam. Maybe elaborate more on that as well. That's also something that you've picked up.
Yes. Another thing that's unique to Africa, so to speak, is the fact that there is a mining scam going on, perpetrated majority of the time by foreigners pretending to be mining executives. These foreigners come out from the DRC, where the actual commodity is mined. It's called a coltan stone. It is used inside of your electronics to help create your little fancy chips in your phones. So it is quite a valuable resource. But these fake executives or mining executives, the scammers, come forward and they pretend to be offering you a financial investment. And here they actually target wealthy business people or individuals that are looking for investment, high value investments. And they go as far as bringing in examples or stones that resemble that particular type of commodity and create an illusion that this is in fact the commodity itself. They get fake testers to sample the actual commodity and then provide fake certification to say that this is in fact the real thing. The victim in the end lands up bankrolling a lot of the cost that's being assumed to be for financial purposes, legislative purposes, governance purposes, to mine this particular commodity across the two countries and obviously to trade it, thinking that this is part of the process. Unfortunately, when they finally run out of cash and they realize that, listen, this is becoming too expensive an endeavor, I can't finance this anymore, the scammers pick themselves up and walk away, and they disappear. And the victim's now left realizing they were scammed and can't get hold of the money, the scammers in any way.
Yeah, it's such a big trap to fall in. And I think maybe let's talk about, prevention here, Nazia. There's, say, fraud prevention services. What are you doing to make sure that you combat these scams, basically?
Well, part of our process is SAFPS has noticed that there's been over 150% increase in scams in 2023 compared to 2022. And we needed to be able to address the problem in some fashion. And so we came out with a unique website dedicated to scams. It's actually a toolbox. It provides you with various tools to be able to be proactive in your approach. Rather than falling victim, use the tools on the website to help you identify if you're being targeted for a scam. Use tools like the DNS scanner on the website before you enter a website to check if it's the valid website, if there's any malware or previous reportings. made on that website before you shop on it or you use it to make financial decisions. And then also a very interesting tool that I think will help many South African citizens, seeing as how advanced fee fraud is also one of the biggest scams in South Africa. People may be looking to buy goods or services online via social media or a particular platform, and they need to know that the person they're buying it from is in fact a fellow South African citizen that they can trust and work with. And so they use the app, which we call Verify Me, and it will allow you to be able to verify that particular person against the Department of Home Affairs using biometrics. So you verify yourself, they verify themselves, and if for whatever reason the person then decides to run away with your money, you'll be able to see that there's some form of verification. You'll be able to identify the scammer. These are just some of the tools that are available on the website. But in addition to prevention, we are offering the ability for you to report an incident. We have a scams hotline. It's 083-123-SCAMS. Simple, easy, one number for many of the participating organizations. When you dial the number, you will be able to either get through directly to their fraud contact centers or even the police and report the incident immediately. You could also choose to report it online.
Thank you so much, Nazia Karrim. Unfortunately, all we have time for, but basically also just warning South Africans there about these scams that are out there, and to be vigilant at all times when anyone asks you for any large sum of money, especially. Always second guess and always make sure that you ask for a second opinion and ask for advice as well. And there's many hotlines that you can call, but YIMA, like Nazia just said, is one of those websites that you can visit and also find a number there just to double check if this is something that you need to move forward with, and rather be safe than sorry at the end of the day. Thank you so much, Nazia, for that interview. Very, very informative.